My name's Ian MacDonald. I'm a volunteer with Yes will Haber. Yes will Haber is a group which is campaigning for a yes vote in the referendum. Excuse me. Tonight's event is being promoted by Yes will Haber and the Radical Independence Campaign people. There was a similar event in Inverness last night, so tonight's is our second event. As you probably are all aware, we've got a pretty momentous year ahead for us. In fact, this is probably the most momentous year Scotland will ever have. It's a year when we actually get an opportunity to decide the future of our country. And that's an opportunity that people across the world don't often get. An opportunity to build a new country. And in essence, that's really our topic for this evening. We have with us today a politician, a thinker, who has huge experience in Scottish politics, and he's used that experience to come up with the ideas in his book, In Place of Fear 2. And the digit is important. The Roman numeral in the title is very important. It reminded me when I first saw the title of the book of, and it may be an apocryphal story, but Kenneth Branagh, the Shakespearean actor and Hollywood director, he was trying to sell his particular film idea in America, and it was based on Henry V, the Shakespearean play. And he was going around all the studios, and he wasn't getting much luck. And eventually, in desperation, he said to the people, "Why on earth won't you give me money for my film? It's a great story, there's battle scenes, there's love, there's treachery, everything you could possibly want in a film." And the people he was talking to returned to him and said, "Mr. Branagh, there's a problem. Nobody will see your film. Nobody will want to go and see Henry V because they haven't seen Henry parts 1, 2, 3 and 4. We don't have that problem, I think, with tonight's topic. Ladies and gentlemen, perhaps I should also say comrades, please give a very warm Le Haber welcome to our special guest, Mr. Jim Sillars. With that, Jim, can I ask you first of all what the significance is of the Roman numeral in the book?
The first book, In Place of Fear, was written by an Iron Bevan in 1952, after the defeat of the Attlee Labour government in 1951. And of course at that time, people like my father had worked and been brought up in the 1930s and had experienced the devastation that visited upon working class families all over the place. In fact, my father he was an engine, well, he was at that time a fireman in the engine, in the railway. He went to his work on the Friday to pick up his pay, and there was a letter in the pay packet telling him he had a choice. Either he was unemployed or he went to London on Monday morning to work, a place he'd never been before. My father was the last man to be employed at the air locomotive sheds for 7 years. That's how bad the unemployment situation was. So Bevan was writing, in a sense, for that generation that had experienced the trauma of the 1930s. He was trying to say that we have to have a society in which the fear of unemployment and insecurity for the working people and their families is replaced. That fear is replaced by security. And although I was only a wee boy when he wrote that book, my old man was a great fan of an Iron Bevan's, and he bought the book. And even at that age, I was a bit political, and later on, took it from him, and it's still in my library, and read it. And an Iron Bevan has been an inspiration to me all of my life. I didn't mean to say I agreed with everything I did, but a wonderful inspiration as a left-wing socialist. So when I came to consider a title for a book, there were two things. First of all, the Iron Bevan linkage. But secondly, the Better Together campaign, and if ever there was a misnomer, that's it, by the way. The Better Together campaign official title among themselves is Project Fear. So in place of fear is an antidote to the fear they are trying to lay upon the Scottish people at the present time. Now if you think about what they say, we must be the collective village idiots of the United Kingdom. Because the clear implication of what they say is, we are not fit to run our own country under any circumstance. Doesn't matter what policy that's produced, you're no good enough. You'll make a mess of it. So the title is meant to be an antidote to that. When they say fear, who are we to be feared of? It must be I'm feared to Neil, or Ian, and Ian's feared to me, and you're feared to me, and I'm feared to him, because it's only us we can be feared of. Why would I be afraid of my fellow Scots believing that they are unable to run this country better than the lunatics in London have run it for a very long time? We've got nothing to fear, we don't even have to fear fear itself. So that's the reason for that particular title.
And before we move away from Nye Bevan, famously he left the Labour government at the time because of the introduction of prescription charges. Do you think that has resonance in what's happening now?
Well, I mean, I left the Labour Party, but I didn't leave the socialist movement, and it's part of the socialist tradition to try and find principles what you stick to. And Bevan found his principles in the National Health Service and agreed to stick to them. And the greatest problem the socialist movement has had in the last 20 or 30 years is that we have retreated in the face of the market economy exponents of Thatcherism. Somewhere along the line, we lost our self-confidence as a socialist movement. And you got the kind of invention you got from Tony Blair about the middle way. When you asked what was the middle way, they couldn't really answer. Now, my view is that not just because of my book, but there are clear indications in Scotland that the socialist retreat is over and that the socialist movement is prepared to advance. One of the key instruments is the Jimmy Reid Foundation, which are producing paper after paper and fundamentally underpinning the socialist ethic and arguing that it is superior to the capitalist one, which is every man for himself. Whereas the socialist ethic is about community. It's about solidarity with each other. It's about caring for each other. And it's about a sense of social justice. Now, social justice is a very difficult thing to define. You know, the right wing say define it. It's a bit like Clement Attlee was asked about it. He says it's a bit like an elephant. Very hard to describe an elephant, but you get what it is when it comes through the door. And we've all got a sense of what's fair and what's unfair. Perhaps not so precisely defined as the right wing would have it, but there's a very good sense in Scottish society about what's fair and what's just. And right now, the socialist movement is able to say to the community of Scotland, this is an unfair, unjust, unequal society. And the socialist ethic of community and solidarity has to be reborn. And it's not surprising, it's starting to be reborn in Scotland. In all of the parts of Western Europe, it's starting here. And you have to bear in mind that the socialist movement, the one that was the most successful, started in Scotland with Keir Hardie and people like him. So it's not surprising. You know, there's something in our atmosphere which makes us a bit different from other people ideologically. And I think that base is the one we're building on. And my book set out to produce a programme which is coherent, which people can actually believe in because it can in fact be delivered. And it's a socialist programme to create full employment, to bring people jobs that they haven't got at the present time, to raise the level of prosperity inside our country and get rid of poverty. So that, essentially, that's the socialist message in this book.